Hello, mathematicians! Welcome back to Number Corner. For Number Corner today, we will be working with our daily rectangle. You will need your Number Corner book and a pencil. We'll be working on pages 92 and 93 today. You can pause the video now to get what you need. For daily rectangle today, I am going to show you our rectangles in a different way. Instead of showing you our tiles first, I have drawn and labeled the dimensions for today's rectangles right down here on our magic wall. I want you to take a moment to think if you could imagine what the frames would look like if they were filled with tiles. We're looking at the blue outlines here. Can you imagine a rectangle inside of this blue outline? How about this one down here? Imagine this filled up with tiles. Put this one over here. What would it look like? How many tiles do you think there would be in each row and each column of these frames? How many tiles would be in each rectangle altogether? You might be thinking about a few different things. Let's have a look at our first frame. We have a frame that is 1 row by 18 columns. How many tiles would be in this whole rectangle if we filled it in? Show a connection if you're thinking 18. Yeah, this would be our long, skinny rectangle. We gotta have one of those every day. That would be 1 row by 18 columns or 18 tiles. This would be a rectangle of 18 tiles. How about our rectangle down here? How many rows are in this rectangle? Show a connection if you're thinking 3. Yeah, we have the number 3 here, and we can count our 1, 2, 3 rows. Well, how many columns? Show a connection if you're thinking 6. Yeah, I've labeled it with a 6 here to show our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. Do you know how many rectangles will be, how many tiles will be in this whole rectangle? Well, we can add our rows together. We know that if we have 2 rows of 6, well, we know that's a double to equal 12. You may also know that 12 plus 6 more equals 18. Show a connection if you were thinking 18 tiles. Yeah, that's good thinking. Let's look at our last rectangle. How many rows are in this rectangle? Show me on your fingers. I should be seeing 2 fingers. There's 2 rows. How many columns do we have? I hope you're thinking 9. We have 9 columns. So there's 9 tiles in each row. Well, 9 plus 9 is a double. What does that make altogether? Oh, if you're thinking 18, that's some good thinking. Show a connection. Yeah, we'll have 3 different rectangles. They'll all be made of 18 tiles. Now that we have a better idea of what our rectangles will look like today, we're going to open up those Number Corner books and we're going to turn to page 93 to fill in our tiles or our rectangles for today for the 18th. And then we'll go back and fill in the last few days that we've been gone. So let's jump into those Number Corner books. Actually, I'm seeing there's an 18 on 92 here, so we'll start at the very, very bottom of page 92. Open up your books. Now you want to go to the first 18 you see. That will be on the bottom of page 92 for you. I've already filled in the first rectangle that we made. It's a 1 by 18. 1 row by 18 columns or tiles. Now you can fill this in your book right now. As you're filling it in, I want you to think about an equation that we could write for 1 times 18. Now you might be thinking, well, we could add 18 together by our tiles, by our columns. 1 plus 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 1. I lost count. Let me start over. 1 plus 1 plus, wait a minute. There's got to be an easier way to do that. Instead of writing 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 till we get to 18, what could we write instead? Show a connection if this is what you're thinking. That's good thinking. 1 times 18 equals 18. We're seeing that one row of 18 just one time to show our 18 tiles. Let's fill that in and look at our next one. The next rectangle we made was 2 by 9. Let's think of some equations we could write for that. Now, we saw 2 rows of 9. So really we thought about our doubles of 9 plus 9 equals 18. Well, we could have looked at this a different way too. You could have been looking at your columns. We had a column of 2 plus a second column of 2 plus a third column of 2 plus a fourth, fifth, a sixth, a seventh, an eighth, and a ninth column of 2 to equal 18. Well, we could also just say that we saw 9 columns of 2. Or we saw a column of 2 9 times to equal 18. Wow, that was a little easier to write than all these 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2's. You can write these equations down now. Let's look at the last rectangle we made, this 3 by 6. How many rows did you see? We saw 3 rows. That's right, 3 rows. And how many tiles were in each row? Do you remember? Are you thinking there were 6 tiles in each row? Yeah, me too. So we had 6 plus 6 plus 6. That's 3 rows of 6. Still equals 18. Well, we also saw our columns. How many tiles were in each column again? Oh, that's right, there were 3. And we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns to equal 18. Or we could say we saw a column of 3 6 times to equal 18. Oh, 18. There we go. You can fill that in your Number Corner book now. Now we have a few days to catch up on in our Number Corner books for the 17th, 16th, 15th, and 14th. We may not get to all of them today, but we'll give it a try. We'll catch up on the rest the next time we come to Daily Rectangle. Let's see how many we can get through today. Let's start with our tiles for the 17th. Now here is our frame for the 17th, for our 17 tiles. Could you imagine what this rectangle would look like? Show a connection if you were imagining a long, skinny rectangle that would look a little something like this. Yeah, that's good thinking. We're starting to picture our rectangles without having to build them first. Let's fill this rectangle in on our rectangle sheet in our Number Corner books. Now we would label this rectangle by our rows and columns, just like our other rectangles. We have 1 row by 17 columns or tiles. And I know we don't want to sit and count 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 until we get to 17 for this one either. So what could we write instead to show an equation? Show a connection if you're thinking 1 times 17 equals 17. Yeah, that's really good thinking. One row of 17 tiles still equals 17. All right, let's look at our next one. I'm already seeing the number 16 1, 2, 3 times on our record sheet. So how many rectangles do you think we can build with 16 tiles? Show me your fingers. I hope you're showing 3, because if we have 1, 2, 3 rows for 16 tiles, we should be able to build 3 rectangles. Let's have a look and see what they'll be. Here are our frames for our 16 tiles. Can you imagine what our rectangles will look like? Show a connection if you are imagining rectangles that look like this. Yeah, that's good thinking. Let's go ahead and fill in these rectangles and some equations to match in our Number Corner books. So first, fill in the labels for each rectangle. We have a 1 by 16, the long skinny rectangle, a 2 by 8, and a 4 by 4. What's an equation we could write for our 1 by 16? Show a connection if you were thinking 1 times 16 equals 16. Yeah, we don't even want to spend our time putting those 1 plus 1 plus 1s in anymore, because now we know an easier way that we can do it. We see one row of 16 just one time. We'll use that multiplication symbol to show us one time. Now let's think of some equations for 2 by 8. How many rows did you see? How many tiles were in those rows? Well, we saw 2 rows of 8, so we can just say we saw 8 2 times. 8 plus 8 equals 16. Well, we could also write that as a multiplication equation by saying that we saw those rows of 8 2 times to equal 16. It's really saying the same thing. Is there another equation we could write? Think about how many columns you saw. Well, we saw 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. That was 4 of our columns. 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. That got a little long. And we can shorten that up a little bit to just say we saw how many columns of 2? Oh, that's right. We saw 8 columns of 2. So we saw those columns of 2 8 times to still equal 16. Now let's fill in our last equations. How many rows did you see? And how many tiles were in each row? Well, we saw 4 rows of 4 tiles. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 to equal 16. Well, we also saw 4 columns of 4. But we don't need to write that equation again because it would look the same. But we could write how many times we saw our rows of 4. Well, we saw those rows of 4 times to equal 16. All right, mathematicians, your job for today is to finish filling in these 3 days in our books for these 3 sets of tiles that we arranged to make rectangles. When you're done, show your teacher your hard work, and we'll finish up our last few days we missed next time. I'll see you next time for Number Corner.